So welcome. I brought these flowers here. I didn't bring the flowers in, but I walked into the studio this morning, and on the front desk was this beautiful vase. What are they, Debbie? Cosmos. They're just magnificent. And it was sitting on the desk, and they were just overflowing in the bright light. And I just, my heart, I felt my heart be touched. And then even more so, a great little note from Yvonne. She wrote me this note about, congratulations, next weekend is our last teacher training weekend, and she just knows what a big event is that. And it was just, it touched me. And I find it so interesting that the theme I chose today was about vulnerability. Let life pierce your heart. And I just stood there and looked at that, and I made myself stand there because I will rush through and just take that in, take in the glory of these beautiful flowers and the thought that went behind it and the support. And I have to do that every time I teach class, because you guys show up, and we're a small but loyal group, and we're going to get through this. And it pierces my heart every time. And as many of you know, I love to read Brené Brown because of her studies in vulnerability. And because I think I know it's a hard thing for me, it's a hard thing for all of us to be vulnerable. And in all kinds of ways, to ask for help, to show that you're being touched, to show that something touches you. So at any rate, I just think that it's challenging. And when we let life pierce our heart, and it pierces, it hurts, because we have to let it all in, the stuff that makes us feel good, like the flowers on the desk as a surprise, and the news that's not so good, the hard news. We have to let that pierce us, because if we try to numb for the bad stuff, like I'm not going to let any bad stuff come in, I'm not going to feel it, then we numb everything else. So you can't selectively numb. You have to feel, or you just numb out. And we've all met people who have numbed out. I know I've at different times in my life have numbed out just because things were intense, and I needed to do that for a while, but we need to always break out of that as well, and to let life come in and pierce us, because then we live truly from the heart, and we live with more joy, more ease, more sense of connectedness to other people, and that's what's so important. So take a good seat if you haven't already. Come to your breath. With each inhale, open and receive what is. So as you sit there, just this whole period of time and everything that is to come, it's not going to let up. 2020 is going to squeeze every bit of angst and crazy out of us that we can possibly imagine. And we hope it will shift in 2021. But life will still go on being life, doing its crazy stuff as it is wont to do. So with each inhale, you receive, just receive life. And with each exhale, release any holding, any sense of numbing around what's going on in your life personally, in the world, country. You breathe it in, and you release your resistance to it. So vulnerability is not the same as giving up. It's a sense of balancing our freedom, our sense of freedom of no boundaries, and our sense of boundaries. So vulnerability, we choose when and how to be vulnerable and with whom. So we don't tell everybody everything. We've all met that person who within 5 minutes of meeting them, they've told you just about the most vulnerable stuff you've ever heard. And it causes us to say, I'm not ready for this. I don't know you well enough. I don't know how to deal with this. So we choose with whom to be vulnerable and in what settings and what situations. Draw your palms together in front of the heart center. So we'll chant Om build up all of the good vibrations that Om can do. Inhale, exhale, cleansing breath. Inhale to Om. Release the hands. Flutter the eyes open. Stretch the legs out. Oh, nice. Just a seated, well, not too much of a stretch, but just say hello to the hamstrings. And we'll start out talking about being vulnerable. You can either start out with supported fish, the one with the blocks this way, or, so Mary, I would suggest you do that, or you can do the passive chest opener with the roll that goes right at the bra line, and then the back of the head's on the floor, the shoulders maybe just barely on the floor. Arms are above the blanket. So either on blocks with supported fish, but some passive chest opener. Knees can stay bent. Can pigeon toe the feet and knock the knees together. Or straighten the legs. And if you straighten the legs, work the back of the thighs towards the floor. That'll cause you to tilt your sits bones to roll more towards the frontmost edge and get more of a low back curve. And then into that space, you create a boundary, extend the tailbone long towards the heels. Oh, this feels so good. So this whole thing with vulnerability is we have to be willing to open here. Back bends are about being willing to open. We think because it's called a back bend, and we often feel pain in the low back if we do it wrong, incorrectly, that we think it's all about the back body, and it's really about the openness of the front body. And I can feel this sometimes when I haven't done this in a while, and when I do back bends, it feels like I'm popping buttons off a tight shirt or cracking the ice right around the sternum. Kind of a wonderful, freeing experience. And just enjoy the openness, the deeper, fuller breath, breathing low and into the low belly on the inhale. And exhale, pull the belly button, snug it up just a little bit to press all the air out through the nose, in through the nose, out through the nose. There's so much more research that I've been reading about how important breathing through the nose is. And in fact, breathing through the nose during your sleep is really important as well. If you wake up with a dry mouth or wake up a lot, or your partner wakes you up because you've been snoring, most likely you're breathing through the mouth. All right. So bend your knees if they're not already. And draw them up, roll over to your side. If you're on the blocks, roll yourself down easily. So we'll do a supported child's pose. Now you can do regular pose if you don't have all the blankets with you, but if you have 2 blankets, this is how they come off the stack, this blanket neutral. Fold it the long way, like the shape of a bolster. If you've got a bolster, that's even nicer. You don't have to worry about folding the blankets, but fold 2 and stack them. That's about the size of a bolster. Then your blocks go, one goes medium, the other goes low. Take your bolster or the blanket bolster and kind of make an incline. And then scoot yourself up close to it where you're kind of almost sitting on the inner edge. Where it doesn't matter. You turn it anyway. Child. And you can do any variations of this at different times, kind of that way. Knees wide apart, toes together. turn that one up. There you go. Nope, middle. Like this. There you go. And a little bit apart, so you have a little room for them to pull apart like that. And just enjoy. So we did the passive chest opener, and this is the reverse of that. It's a very slow cat-cow in a sense. This is a way of opening up. So scooch close, come close to it. Widen your knees wide, wide, wide apart, toes together. And then just, Will it go there? There you go. Does that work? Okay, good. You may want to scoot your your hips closer to the bolster. And what, so you're like almost, I'm almost sitting on it right here. There you go. And release. And then on your next inhale, turn your head to your second favorite side. And you may even say, oh, this feels wrong. Because we're not used to turning to that side. We won't be there long. Just a nice supported child's pose. It's always an option to do a regular one with the forehead on a block or resting on your forehead, on your hands. Just to draw inward. So in order to let life pierce your heart, to be vulnerable, you have to know what's going on in you, to draw in. Be vulnerable to yourself first, so that you can share that with special people, certain times. And on your next inhale, come on up. Move all of your stuff out of the way. Pad your knees if you wish. And then we'll do regular cat-cow. So this is the chest opener for cow. Exhale, tuck your tailbone, lift your belly up and in, side waistline lifts, head bows. Inhale, extend and lengthen through the nose. Exhale, contract. Now see if you can move into the 1-to-1 ratio breath here, where if you inhale for 3, that's in cow, then try to exhale for 6, and the movement lasts just as long as the exhale. You just push the last bit of air out as soon as you go fully into your cat. Inhale, start from the hips, from the sits bones. Roll up, whatever that count is. Then see if you can double it, or at least extend it a few counts. Don't get too techno math on it. Just work to extend, to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the one that says you're safe, you're all right, that you can rest and release. So your exhale is as long as you can make it, and the movement lasts that long. So you may feel like, oh my God, the movement's too slow because I can extend the exhale so long. And then the next time you come through center, pause, tuck your toes, walk your hands back, and sit on your heels to the degree you can. I love Mary's adjustment. If it's too intense, you can put a couple of blocks under the knees. It just releases, or a blanket under the knees. So it depends on how much space you need if it's very, very intense. If you can handle it, hold it. We won't be here too long. Just to stretch out the bottom of the feet, wake them up. Then stretch the arms forward, palms up. Bring your fingers down just in front of your knees and come to the palms. So the fingers are pointing back towards your knees. So start, there you go. Claw the floor with this, spread the fingers, claw the floor. Pull the elbows back towards your hips, micro bend your elbows. Like don't lock them forward, pull them back. Yeah, just so they're soft. Especially if those tend to hyperextend. And then the full thing for lion is to stick out your tongue, roll your eyes up in your head, and give the world a big roar, a big blast. So it's, and then release back to toe torture. Shake the hands like there's no paper towels in the bathroom. Shake them off. And then this one, you're not going to put much weight on your hands because they're not designed to do this, but palms are down. Turn your fingers back towards your knees and just stretch out the top of the wrist. So you're not here, you're all the way down, but you're not putting much weight there. Micro bend your elbows. They want to go out to the side. Pull them back to the middle and pull them back. Oh yeah. And then sit back on toe torture, tuck your toes, and shake the hands again. All right. You can keep the knees down. Place a block in front of you. Come into table. Walk your knees about a handprint distance behind your hips and your hands about a handprint distance in front of your shoulders. So you're in unstable table. Look where your palms are. Reach out and place your elbows there. Put the block between your hands like this with the baby fingers down to the side. Hug the block, squeeze it. Squeeze another one, an imaginary block between your elbows, and feel that all the way into the shoulders. Push the forearms down and away from you as you shift your hips back over your knees. The forehead comes to rest between or behind your elbows, but keep the hug in the arms. The tendency is to let go of the arms. So Taylor, you need to walk your knees back. So your chest, your head is coming to the floor, not the block. Move your hips back. Move your hips back. Those are your knees. You need to move your hips back. There, down, there. Go back, keep going. Shift your shoulders back. Elbows, nope, those are your elbows. Move your shoulders back. Let's move back, yeah. Do you see how she's doing that? Go all the way back. Shift back. There you go. Now rest the head on the ground if it'll go, or put another block underneath it if it's too high. Don't lose the hug. So as soon as we start to work the shoulders, you notice how the hands and the arms just want to go on vacation. Why do we keep so much engagement in the hands and the forearms? Is because it works into the shoulders. You feel this nice opening in the back. If you haven't figured it out, we're working on a lot of upper back and front chest opening, because when we stop being vulnerable, we tend to hunch over more protective. We want to open the heart. So just lift the head and keep the shoulders where they are. Do not bring the shoulders forward. Just lift the head enough to come off the floor, just so there's no weight on it. Press the block with your hands, hug an imaginary block with your elbows, tuck your toes. Without bringing your shoulders forward, lift your knees a few inches. Walk the toes forward, push the forearms away from you as you take your heart back towards your toes. Big upper chest opener. You feel it? I feel it. Breathe. Say, Tila, push your heart center, your sternum back towards your knees. Oh yeah, do you feel that in the shoulders more? Keep hugging more, keep pushing it back. Don't straighten the legs, don't straighten the legs. Take your heart back. Yes. You feel that deeply? And then come on down, everybody. All right. Move the block. Widen, so wide table, tuck your toes, come into downward facing dog, upside down letter V. And walk your dog, bending one knee and then the other like you're pedaling out your feet. Stretching out the back of your calves. Oh, tight. And then on your next exhale, soften your knees, walk your hands back to your toes, come to forward bend at the back of your mat. So it can be full forward bend or half forward bend. Half forward bend is better known for women as public bathroom squat. So you're not rounding over. Because what happens, it's all goddess class today. If you're doing public bathroom squat, right? We've all done this. If you tuck this, what happens? Nothing good, right? So you've got to really, that's moving the sits bones back and the inner thighs wide apart. Keep the knees soft, stretch. And then if it's your choice today, bend all the way forward. Oh, full forward bend. Inhale, halfway up, hands on your hips, soften your knees, shrug your shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones towards the sky, and then push down from the legs, hinge from the hips as you rise up to standing. Ah, we're up. Release. Step forward towards the top of your mat. So you can tell from last week when I wasn't feeling so good, we kept everything on the floor. Good luck. You're introduced now to real yoga. Yeah. But you've been coming some of the other classes, right? All right, good for you. All right, feet are parallel. So we all have a tendency to turn out. This is parallel, so it will feel weird in the beginning, but then it starts to feel right. Lift all 10 toes. Press through the four corners of the feet. That means the ball of the foot nearest the big toe. Then lift your inner arch and press the inner heel down. You'll notice what muscles you have to use to do that. Keep that. Don't pull off of those points. Those are down and super glued down. Fan from the inner heel to put the ball of the foot nearest the baby toe down without lifting your big toe ball off. You feel the outer leg muscles working now. Then lift your outer arch, even if it's in your mind. So you're not rolling off. You're keeping the big toe ball down fully. Yeah. And then lift your, at least in your imagination, lift your outer arch and tack your outer heel down. So those are the four corners of the feet. Press your shins energetically forward, which means you soften your knees and press your shins forward without losing anything you've done, keeping all of that. Hug your heels towards each other isometrically. You're not moving them, you're just hugging them. You feel the inner knee and inner thigh muscles working. Keeping all of that, Cinderellas, move the thighs in, back, and apart. So your inner thighs move back, they try to pull apart, and the tailbone then lengthens into all of that. The toes slide along the floor, and you rise up. You're strong, you're stable. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, halfway up, walk your fingertips up your chin, upside down, letter L. The back is long, shoulders are lifted. Exhale, lift your low belly and bow. Two more. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, bow deeply. Inhale, extend, expand, halfway up. And exhale, bow into yourself deeply, into that knowing place that knows how to be vulnerable. Next, inhale, place your fingertips on either side of your feet and reach your right leg way back, straight leg lunge. Keep the back heel high, hands to the front thigh. So you just scissor the legs. The other trick here is that your feet are railroad width apart. You don't want to be on a tightrope. That's harder to balance. If you're having trouble balancing, walk your right foot out to the right a little bit more. Careful. There you go. So move your feet away from the midline. Yeah, there you go. Now scissor the legs. That means you have roller skates on and you don't want to do the splits. Scissor, back toes drag forward, isometrically, front foot draws back. You feel that all working in the legs. Nice. And the hands on the thigh and bow forward, pull the side ribs. This is a vulnerability pose, pull it in. And from that space, tailbone moves down, legs are strong. Inhale, interlace the hands behind the back and stretch up and over. Back leg stays straight. Here's where you will want to bend it because you're feeling a lot of stretch. So pull those shoulders over the hips as best you can, not from the chin, from here. So a lot of times we see somebody come back and we do this, right? You want to move your shoulders back in space and then move down. Great. Windmill the arms down, step back, downward facing dog. And you can come into lunge on the other side two ways. You can swing your right foot forward, or you can lower both knees, help your right foot come forward. Fingertips on either side. You can also use blocks here for a little more lift, and then lengthen the back leg. So pause here, get your stability. Use blocks on either side. That will help you right here. There you go. Light on the fingertips though. You're not putting any weight, it's just there for balance. Back heel is up. Yeah, nice. Now, scissor the legs together. So you're trying to pull them into the midline to keep from doing the splits on roller skates. Inner thighs move in, back, and apart. And the tailbone lengthens as you come just to like a long diagonal. You're not upright yet. Keep the back heel lifted and back leg is inner thighs turned. There you go. I know it's a little more stable to do this, but we're testing ourselves, right? That's the rule. And you can always turn and do this to the wall, right? For stability, it's perfectly okay. So if you're fighting your balance today, don't fight. Release, be vulnerable, turn around. All right, so here we bow in, pull in, tailbone lengthens long. Should feel more of a stretch across the top of the back thigh, quadricep. Then the shoulders come over the hips, interlace the hands behind the back, scissor the legs. Legs are steady so the upper body can be free, can be open. If the lower body's not supporting you, the upper body's gonna tense up. It's gonna slump over and hunch over. And release. Step back, downward facing dog. Oh. Shift forward, plank pose. Claw the floor, soften between the shoulder blades. So you're in one long line. Nice. Pull the shoulder blades more onto the back and move them down towards your hips. I'll pause here. Lower down, knees, chest, and chin. Oh. And take a moment. Stretch your legs long behind you. Click all 10 toenails down on the floor, including the baby toenail. Plant your hands on either side of your chest. Shrug your shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones, and come up into a baby cobra. So you lengthen, toes are stretching towards the wall behind you, the sternum stretching towards the wall in front of you. Tailbone is lengthening so you don't pinch the low belly. It's a little bitty cobra. Little baby. Tuck your toes, downward facing dog. Walk your feet closer together so the big toe sides touch. And then lift your right leg high behind you. Roll the outer right hip down so you're not opening the hips. Notice a tendency to your weight more towards the hands. Move the heart, the chest, the shoulders back towards your feet. And then release. Sides. Now the right foot is more in the middle. The left leg lifts. Outer left hip moves towards the floor as the inner left thigh moves towards the sky. Move it up. Heart moves back towards your toes. And then release. Lower to your knees. Knees apart, toes together. And have a block, this time under your forehead. And rest in child's pose. Knees wide apart, toes together. You can always have a blanket underneath. And also, if the knees are unhappy, you can do a form of puppy pose, where your hips are up high and you're crossing your forearms, resting your head on your crossed forearms. So sometimes if the knees do not want to do child's pose and your hips do not go to your heels, you stay up in puppy pose. Nice. Next, inhale, stretch your arms out, come back into table. Widen your table, walk your knees back behind your hips, hands a little bit in front of the shoulders, claw the floor, shift your heart back and lift into dog. Step your left leg forward, straight leg lunge. So you can either swing it through or lower your knees, help it up, and lift the leg up. Blocks on either side, back by your heels. They can be as high or medium or low as you need. Straighten both legs. Lift the back heel a lot. So Taylor, if you bring the blocks in, bring them high, then closer to your feet, bring them on the mat. There you go. Now, light on the fingertips. Scissor the legs, straighten. Oh, yeah. Lift your back heel more. It will give you more space. Nice. And then take your inner thighs back and apart. Woo! How do you do that? Lift the toes on the front foot. Four corners stay down, not the whole foot, just the toes. Keep the four corners down. And as the sits bones are moving back to the wall behind you, the heart is moving forward. Oh. And you're light on your fingertips. Stay up on your blocks, Tila, because this is where you stay for, right? So this is elegance for you right now, and it'll change. This becomes inelegance, right? Because you're like and you're bending. This is like, all right, I can still smile. Yeah, that works. Oh. And then move the blocks, plant your hands, and step back, plank pose. Oh, I know. Lower down, knees, chest, and chin. Interlace the hands behind the back, stretch the legs out long behind you, click all 10 toenails down onto the floor, press the tops of your feet into the floor. Tailbone lengthens, belly button pulls up and in. Shrug your shoulders toward your ears, lift the head of the arm bones to the sky, and then come up into a form of Shalabhasana, locust. And breathe. And release. Plant your hands, tuck your toes. Downward facing dog. So now we have to do the runner stretch on the other side. So step your right foot forward. You can lower both knees to the floor. Haul your right foot up. Bring it back up. Blocks underneath you. Light on the fingertips. Both legs straight. Keep the back heel high. So the tendency is to drop the back knee and forget the back leg. So if the legs are the governor of the back, then when we're doing anything with the knee wrong, lift your back heel high and roll it in. So you're rolling out a bit. You want to roll the inner thigh. There you go. Now lengthen through both legs. Pull the back toes forward as you're pulling the front heel back. So that's called scissoring the legs. Whew. This side's tighter, isn't it? Yeah. That's why I finally call my sides tight and tighter. And just let the stretch happen. Good. And step back, downward facing dog. You may want a blanket to pad your knee for this next one. Lower your knees to the floor. Step your left foot forward. You may want blocks for this in the beginning. Keep the back toes tucked so your left leg is forward. Yeah, so I'm going to design a line of yoga wear that has L and R, and then little wristbands that have L and R, because it's learned. It's not like innate. Just because you forget it doesn't mean, or you get mixed up. As soon as we cross midline, the brain kind of says, I don't know where you are. So that's why we like to do that. All right. The knee stays right over the ankle, never goes forward of it to protect the knee. If you can shift more forward, see if you can walk your back knee at least a little bit behind your hip. You can come down on the block to support yourself. There you go. Wiggle your back knee back a little bit more. There you go. And the blocks come close to the front foot. So they're not out here because that keeps you all strung out. Yeah, perfect. All right, shift your hips forward. Come light on the fingertips. Oh, wherever you are. Yeah. And just feel that great stretch, right? Now we're working both a deeper hip flexor here, plus if your back knee is back far enough, you'll feel it across the back of the top of your quadricep, the back thigh. All right, now walk back to where your hip is right over your knee. So you're making like a negative space square here. Square, 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 square in the invisible space there. It's called negative space in art. The legs are still hip width apart. So you don't want to be back here. Because you see how your knee is forward of your ankle? Yeah, you want your ankle to be right under your knee, and it would be helpful to get your front foot off the blanket, back knee on the blanket. There you go. All right. So here we go, half camel. Place your hands on the front of your top of your thigh rather. Inner thighs move back and apart. It's a muscular sort of energetic thing. Tailbone down, you start to feel the low belly engage, and then stretch your right arm up. So the same knee that's down is the arm that's up. Stretch it up, come into half beach babe, elbow forward, push your head into your hand, and stretch your elbow back, curl back. So feel a pretty good stretch across the quadricep. Pull the elbow in, now stretch the elbow up. Push your head into your hand, push the head into your hand, and the hand pushes back. And then you keep arcing back. Oh, and release. Change sides. So that's like a half camel. If the single blanket isn't enough padding, double works. Keep the back toes tucked. First, start with the hands on the top of the front thigh. Scissor the leg. So it's as though you're trying to stand up from here. You're not going to, but use those muscles as though you were going to stand up, right? So first we'll take the deeper stretch, walk the front foot forward more and shift your hips forward. Blocks are friends. Keep the knee right over the ankle. Don't let it come forward. So if it comes forward, it means you can walk your front foot more towards the top of your mat. Keep walking. There you go. See, you're trying to split me apart, like. So you're stretching the back of the thigh here. You can rest on your forearm. A forearm on the thigh helps sometimes, or hold here, whatever feels most stable for you. Oh, you feel a stretch here? Okay. If you feel it in the low back, you've got to use more tailbone. So the tailbone energetically goes down towards the back of the knee to lengthen the low back. And then inhale, come up, walk your front foot back a bit. So now the knee is right over the ankle and you're making, it's all perpendicular and square and 90 degrees and everything. So a half camel here. So Debbie, you can move your front foot back a little bit more. So your back hip is right over your knee. How's that? Okay, good. Back toes stay tucked, it keeps you stable. And again, your legs are still hip or outer hip width apart. If they're close together, it's harder to hold your balance. So you just widen your stance a bit more. Now, scissor the legs together like you're trying to stand up from this position. You feel how that engages the quadricep and also the hamstrings. Scissor it up. The right hand's on the top of the right thigh. The left arm comes up, come into half beach babe. So you're holding the back of the head, elbow forward, push your head into your hands and stretch your elbow up towards the sky. Back bend, big back bend. Tailbone has to be really engaged long and deep. Otherwise you'll feel this in the low back, which you don't want to feel. You want to feel it in actually the quadricep is where I feel it, the down leg. And then release. Step back, downward facing dog. And then lower your knees and step your left leg forward, straight leg lunge. Walk your left foot out to the left and your right knee and foot out to the right. So you're in a wider stance than normal. Both arms to the inside, blocks, coming into this form of a lizard pose. You can start with the blocks high, outer shoulder width apart, and come to rest on your forearm. So see if you can walk your front foot forward more, come up a bit, come off the blocks a bit. Yeah, walk your front foot forward more, walk your blocks forward more. Shift your hips forward a little bit. Oh, there, you feel that? There you go. Now soften the heart. And then notice the tendency to clench the fingers, either together, like praying, or just, I hate this, kind of a thing. So soften, that's where we become vulnerable to this stretch. Deep, deep hip opener. And then add a bit of a twist. So the left hand goes to the top of the left thigh. And again, if you're feeling uneasy on the block, you can stack 2 blocks together and it makes it a little bit more stable. When they're on their little end, they go wobble, wobble. Makes me nervous anyway. Push into the top of your right, into the left hand and begin to twist towards your front knee. Take the top and bottom of the ears back. And inhale, release. Change sides. You can just jog in between or be grateful you can get to the other side without the help of 911. Right, so that's way behind, as far back behind the hip as you can get it. The front shin is straight up and down. So bring the front foot more. Yeah, we're trying to split you apart now. Both arms on the inside. Back leg still stays working. The tendency here is to untuck the toes and let the back leg just hang, but that will eventually kind of anger the hips. So you keep the back leg engaged like you're about ready to lift the knee off the floor, but we're not. You hug the front leg, the front knee, the right knee hugs in towards the shoulder. May or may not touch the right shoulder, but it's hugging in that direction. Then soften between the shoulder blades, soften the heart. So not dropping the head. It's cat when you're rounding, but it's cow when lifting the sits bones, lifting the collarbones. And then a twist stretch from here. I like to double stack the blocks if you're not going down to the floor, just because it's more stable. The right hand to the top of the right thigh. And you use the right hand to help lengthen the spine so you can twist towards the front leg. Yeah. So you're twisting and looking towards the right. There you go. Enjoy the twist, the stretch, the deepness of it all. And inhale, release. Take one last dog just to stretch it out, or a half forward bend. And then come down. All right, this is a really vulnerable thing. It's a belly roll, jelly belly roll. All right, if this is the way the blanket comes off the stack, this way, open it once to where it's long. Have the fringe either in your right or your left hand, but the fringe is down. Then in front, put it down in front of you, and you will fold it into thirds, here and here. Get the wrinkles out. The long way, Debbie. So the fringe is on one end. So open it up again. There you go. Oh, too much open. Fold it in half. There you go. Now you got it. Now, third. There you go, got it. Turn the fringe away from you and roll this up about halfway. That's the jelly roll. Roll it tight. And then the belly, the part, pubic bone, belly button, hip bones, that roll goes right there in the jelly belly, right? Oh. The main contraindication for this is if you've had recent abdominal surgery, which I trust no one's had. If you've had recent abdominal surgery, then just lie it flat on your belly if that's comfortable. And stack your hands and rest your forehead on your hands. And breathe into the belly. This can be intense. Let's see if you can release your head to the floor and stack your hands on top of each other so your forehead has something to rest on. And the toes just untuck and turn in a little bit, and the heels roll out. So you just relax your feet. Toes are pointed. You don't untuck. There you go. You just toes turn towards each other though. This can be incredibly intense, both physically and emotionally. If you can tolerate it, you can do a tiny little bit of rocking to one side and then the other. Just to massage all the organs. And then breathe deeply through the nose. Just practice a nice 1-to-1 ratio ujjayi breath. And gradually, over time, it may take several times doing this, but over time, the first few times I did this, I thought I was going to scream. It was so intense. I had so much junk stored up psychically, energetically in the low belly. It's where we hold shame. Yeah, well, it's below the belly button, above the pubic bone. Right in the low belly. Yeah, right in between, yeah, right into the pelvis. So we know that at least yogic lore tradition teaches us that we hold a lot of our grief and shame and fear in the low belly. We clench there when things, it's normal. When things get tough, when things get hard, we clench. Well, then when we come into constant clenching and constant adrenal cranking, the sympathetic nervous system, we never relax. And then once we hit a little patch of vulnerability, we feel like we're going to fall apart. So it's about practicing it so it's not such a scary thing. And on your next exhale, push back into a child's pose. Move the jelly roll out. I know, right? And then come to lie on your back for Shavasana. And it will feel heavenly, just heavenly. First, just lie on the back. So much release that can happen there. You can always slide a blanket or a bolster underneath your knees if you want it. Otherwise, just settle in for a nice, deep relaxation. Bring your awareness to the soles of your feet. Soften and release them. Soften the arches, the tops of your feet. Release your ankles. Release your calves, your shins. Soften the knees. Soften the back of your thighs and the top of your thighs. Release your buttocks, the glutes, and your belly, the one that you massaged over the jelly roll. Take some deep, full breaths in the low belly, letting the diaphragm massage the organs as it moves up and down with each breath. Soften your low back, your side ribs, and your front ribs. Soften your heart center. Move into the heart center. Not the physical position on the left, but the space right in behind the sternum. The symbolic heart center opens and glows with a soft, healing light. Soften your fingertips, palms, wrists, forearms. Release your elbows and your upper arms. Release the front of your chest, the armpit chest nearest the armpits, and the shoulders, the upper arms, the head, where the upper arms meet the shoulder socket. Let that release into the gentle pull of gravity. Swallow to soften your throat. Part your back teeth slightly. Part your lips slightly to soften the jaw. The base of your tongue is soft. The upper palate releases back. Hollows of the cheeks soften back and down. Ears and temples soften. Your eyeballs settle back into the cradle of your eye sockets as all the muscles around the eyes release and soften. The space between your eyebrows, the third eye center, softens and releases all the way into the center of your skull. Forehead and scalp soften. Follow your breath in and out. Through the nose. As thoughts come up, and they will, just let them glide on past like birds in the sky, leaving no trace. Watch them go. More thoughts will come in. Watch them go. Just choose for these few moments not to follow the soap opera of your thoughts. Let the narrative just dissolve. Begin to deepen your breath. Add gentle movement starting with the fingers and your toes, hands and feet, stretching your arms and legs any way that feels delicious. Gradually drawing your knees up towards your chest, roll to your side and rest there, curled up in your arms for a few moments. Just taking these few precious moments of being here and now. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. And then rolling a little more towards the floor, use the strength of your arms to press yourself up to a seated position. And sit well. And notice after a yoga practice, at least for me, I always feel a little more vulnerable, a little more open, and at the same time strong. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's incredible strength. Drawing your palms together in front of the heart center. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. Namaste.